of Underrated and Overlooked podcast. Hope everybody's having a great start to the week. NFL football is officially back. Week one is over now, so we're going to react to that, obviously, talk about some standout performers from high school, preview some really good matchups in week five now. Hard to believe it's already week five. Talk about some standout performance from week four, a little bit about some of the best teams we think in the state, and then get into some college football. Big matchup for Georgia this weekend, playing South Carolina on CBS at 3:30, and also about Tech. So, Craig, how you feeling today, man?
Feeling good. We missed last week, but I'd say overall the last 2 weeks, your predictions have been pretty spot on.
Yeah,
You were right about the Roswell Milton one. You're right about these college football games as well. So I'm excited to be back, but hopefully I'll have a better week.
yes. Hopefully you will. Usually you're pretty spot on too, Craig. But yeah, man, I had a pretty good week. I felt pretty good, guys. I had a undefeated college football week. The matchups I did, it all came true. The upsets and everything. So it's rare to have a perfect week. But no, definitely feeling good, man. But let's go ahead and get into some standout performers from week four, Craig. I'm gonna throw it to you first. Who's some people you got?
First one, it's got to be Kamari Nix, the Kel quarterback. So we mentioned this was a big game for him. He's going up against Sprayberry. That's where he was quarterback last year. Kel's rebounded very well from that Parkview game, but also they've had a little lapses in the second half. Alatuna crept back in the game. Pope crept back in the game. Sprayberry really wanted this win. They were undefeated, and then he just went off. I mean, he had a great day passing. We saw new guys getting involved. It wasn't just Peyton. It wasn't just Kyle. Looks like the offense really opened up, and then he just killed them with his legs and athleticism. And so a lot of people were thinking, oh man, Kel, they got to get Bryce Clavin back ASAP. They got to get him back next week, or the season's not. Oh, they're going to struggle in the region. I think they can still win the region with Kamari. I think he stepped it up in a difficult situation. He's taken it on, and I think he has the skill set. And so I think, in terms of an individual standout in a game that impressed me, I think it was Kel and just how good they looked overall as a team and just kind of handling that adversity.
Yeah, speaking of Kamara, I think you pulled up a great stat. Only two incompletions. I think he had four touchdowns in the recent game. Just what do you think allows him to be so great at the quarterback position? Because really, coming into the season, he was supposed to be running back and playing defense. But what do you think just allows him to be able to play the quarterback position at such a high rate and level? And really, no precipitous drop off. Since he's been quarterback for Kel, you're seeing them compete and contend really well out there in 5A, and I think they're 3-1 right now.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is probably just the offense kind of working around his skill set. I think the offensive line plays probably improved, but just getting the ball out to the playmakers and then getting him comfortable. Last year, heading into the Kel game when he was on Sprayberry, he didn't have any touchdown passes yet. That was his breakout game, even though they ended up losing it. And I mean, this it was the same thing this season. This was the game where he really stepped up and led the offense. And so I think a couple weeks into this season, obviously the new pieces, I think the last couple weeks have probably bonded him. When you're a guy that's starting on defense the entire offseason, and then you got to come over and be quarterback. I'm sure he was obviously a good teammate before, but he's probably gotten a lot more comfortable with the running backs, the O line, the receivers, and so he's really stepped up. So I don't know when Bryce is coming back, when that is, but I think they will be just fine. And that was a big result for them in non-region play, big rivalry game, and also just credit to the defense because, as we mentioned, that's usually where he's going to be playing. Putting him at quarterback, you lose a special talent defensively, but those guys have stepped up as well.
Yeah, man, and I think for me, my standout performer has to be Traylon Maddox. I mean, big game against North Gwinnett ended up being a thriller. He had key runs at towards the end to set them up to win the game. So I thought he had a great performance, man. Eric Godfrey going against his former team in Parkview. But yeah, man, 228 yards, three touchdowns. He had a really, really good game. So I just think they got so many weapons. And I think that's why they've continued to be so high on that team. Parkview is because they got the Mike Matthews of the world, the Carson Wilsons, the Traylon Maddox, the Kyrie Spains who's out right now, but when he returns, got so many weapons you get the ball to. Jalen Crawford playing both sides. So just want to give him a shout out. Traylon Maddox having a great season so far. Committed to Georgia Tech. So I want to give him a shout out. I thought he had a great week 4 performance.
Totally dominated. And a similar situation, he's a guy that can play a lot of different roles, but they struggled passing the ball in that game. Only 5 completions, despite having Mike Matthew, these other guys. So, okay, the passing game's not working. We don't have Kyer Spain, the multi year starter. Someone had to step up. He did it. It's probably the most carries he's taken in a game in probably years, maybe even his career, and just went off, absolutely dominated throughout the game. They wouldn't have won without him. So that's good to see. And then hopefully just him being able to run the ball like that, that's going to open up that passing game. Parkview is looking good, but that was definitely a standout performance. And I'm trying to think if I have some other stats. I'd say a similar, because we're talking about guys that can play multiple positions. I think it's got to be AJ Watkins too from Norcross. If you look at the score of that game, they're down 21-3 at the half. Okay, how'd they come back and win? AJ Watkins, 16 of 24 passing, 237 yards, 20 carries, 126 yards, 3 touchdowns.
I think he
won
had a
them that
receiving
game.
touchdown or a
Yeah,
receiving pass too for like 40 yards.
yeah. So I mean that they wouldn't have won without him. That's just stepping up. And man, what an athlete! And some people dropped Norcross out of the polls in that one. We were impressed with some of their receivers. They obviously went off as well. But when the game isn't going your way, you find yourself in a big hole. You got to have the proven playmaker step up. I think so far this season, I mean, he's kind of putting Norcross on his back.
Yeah, he's doing an outstanding job. I mean, him, Antonio Mulder, some of their leaders. Obviously, AJ's one of them, committed to Air Force. I think Jamari Harold's having a great junior season as well. Put a lot of people know this was week 1 performance. So, yeah, he's doing a good job, man. And I think, Norcross, they'll be right there, contending for a region title. Me and you've talked about it off air. We really think between Norcross and Peachtree Ridge, we think that game is top tier is going to determine who wins it. But now that's a great comeback win, 21-0. You're struggling, can't get anything going. And, your quarterback gets you out of that hole, giving him the ball, letting him work, letting him operate. It's really special, as even in high school, just having a special athlete to get the ball to that can kind of carry your team and, help you out, help you get going. So that's what AJ Watkins did and continues to do, man. So definitely big shout out to him. And like I said, that game, I got my popcorn ready, man. I'm not going to lie. I know a lot of people aren't talking about it, but that region possible championship between them and Ridge, I think it's going to be a marquee game.
Yep, I definitely hope we're there. But we saw it week 1 with him. They can run a 2 quarterback system, but he's not on the sideline when they take him out of that position. He can line up in the backfield, he can line up at receiver, and so he's pretty much on the field every single snap. And you factor that versatility into a game against Peachtree Ridge with their athletes, that's primetime material for sure. So I hope to see that as well. Here's another standout. They did not get the win, but I just thought it was extremely impressive. This is Preston Burr from Veterans. Veterans, they're going to have a tough time trying to make the playoffs. They're in there, I believe, with Northside, Warner Robins, just region 1. I'm trying to think who else is in there, but they played Perry 49-46 loss, but his numbers were insane. 5 carries, 14 yards, 4 touchdowns, 12 receptions. So he's a running back that stepped up big in the passing game, also had the 4 rushing touchdowns, but 12 catches, 233 yards, and 2 touchdowns through the air, 6 touchdowns in the loss. And so they're going to have some tough matchups, but maybe they can find a way to get into the playoffs. But that's just massive numbers right there.
100%. And then my next standout, I got to go with the Edge from Sandy Creek, Evan Harvey. Big time game for him. They did lose, unfortunately, East Coweta, but get this stat line: 5 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, 2 QB hurries. So far this season, he has 11 tackles for loss and 6.5 sacks. So sophomore stepping up big for Sandy Creek. We got a chance to see him up close and personal at our, Georgia Tech Corky Kell 707 Invitational. Guy's huge, having a big sophomore season, and will continue to get better. And is doing a good job applying that pressure on the quarterbacks.
Yep. Despite that loss, I think Sandy Creek still is exceeding my expectations this season. They've come out, look really good. And East Guido, they're going to be playing Lowndes coming up, so that will be good game to kind of observe to see how good they're going to be in 7A. They're undefeated, but yeah, Sandy Creek's been solid for sure. And then I'm going to talk about Bainbridge Keenan Phillips, running back. He's just been unbelievable. He was the Region 1 4A Player of the Year last year. And in terms of his workload running the ball, he's just off to a ridiculous pace. He was averaging like 90 yards on the ground last season. He's at 160 per game. He took 31 carries. Anytime I see a running back take over 30 carries, it's like that's not seen too often these
No,
days.
not
That's
anymore.
next level. You
Nope.
deserve praise for doing that. That is tough. So he had 31 carries, 202 yards, and 2 touchdowns in the 46-28 win over Thomasville. Definitely a player to watch in 4A. Bainbridge is a great team. I think they have one loss to a higher classification team. They're going to be battle tested, and Keenan Phillips definitely is a player to watch.
100%. And then for me, Luke Nickel is my next standout. We actually got a clip we're going to show you guys in just a moment. But 18 for 26, 241 yards, 3 touchdowns on TV, on PCTV, in the bright lights. Doesn't phase him. One of the better quarterbacks, I think, in the state. I mentioned it, actually last offseason or this past offseason about just the 2025 class and how impressed I was with some of the really great players. And I thought this would be one of the better ones, we've seen in a little bit. But he continues to impress, and I thought, that was one of the reasons I took Milton to win. I know the offense had struggled, right? The offense exceeded kind of where they were. They were only putting up probably less than like 15, 20 points a game, right? 10 only against Western, and then they had 27 against Collins Hill. But that looked like their offense. That looked like that could be the game. And I was telling Craig that Roswell game could potentially kind of kickstart them to where they could really be elite offensively. And they got, like I've been saying, they have all the weapons, right? You got the Ryan Gias, the Braun Gallons, the CJ Wileys, the TJ Lesters. Got a whole bunch of studs. So it was just getting it all to culminate together. And he talked a little about it in the kind of after he won Offensive Player of the Game after the game was over. So I thought that was cool. But look at this play here, just how he kind of progresses through his read, and look at this veteran smart play he makes here. So we're going to share the screen with y'all real quick.
Yeah, third down, 20-7, just putting the game away, just effortless play right here. I think he just looks like a veteran. Obviously, he's only a junior. See it right here. Just as soon as the pressure's applied, just goes back wide open.
Get a little motion. Nice job coming back. Easy touchdown for Ryan Gias. So let's break it down just a little bit, Craig. Go a little bit more in depth for fans that don't know. Okay. So it looks like we got a receiver outside right here, y'all. And then we got Gia right here. So do it with the mouse. Gia's right here. CJ Wiley's right here. Okay, 1-on-1 right here. We see what 23 does. Okay, he's going to come up. Boom. Okay, this is 1-on-1 coverage right here. You see the safety guys. It's in the middle of the defense right here. You got 3 linebackers up here right here. Okay. So boom. Get a little motion right here. So this play's going to get designed to the right. Great play design. But look, it's covered up well. So this is what happens. So great film read right here, guys. Just break it down a little bit more. He is pending on the quarterback. So this is where Roswell arrowed at. This allows Gia to break loose right here and get open into the flat. Because if you look at it, as we showed y'all, the play is designed to the right. So great job right here. Play design. Fool this guy right here. Wide open right here. Luke does a good job. We're going to roll it back one more time. Luke does a good job of seeing, hey, okay, it's covered up. Oh, okay, my tight end is wide open. Let me move back to that side. Buy some time. Boom. Easy touchdown. Easy money from Milton. Just wanted to break that down a little bit of how greatly designed that play was and how Milton kind of tricked the linebacker right there and just moved to the other side. So hope y'all like that little breakdown right there.
And I think that shows just how Milton's offense was completely rolling. All these guys are involved. They think it's going to the right. They got to cover. And then Ryan G making his first big play of the game.
Yep.
Just put it away right there. And so it was extremely impressive. And I think we're going to see that offense really getting its rhythm. One of the things that was frustrating, and I know it sounds minute, but Milton, just the entire night, they had low snaps. I'm telling you.
Yeah, you're right. Historically low snaps. Yep.
That's just so tough when you're trying to get these quick plays, screens. I mean, just reaching down, trying to get the ball ready. They gotta fix that. And it wasn't just us that noticed it. Rusty and Brandon were talking about it. So I think they just got it because that will make them more crisp. And then if Luke's worrying about, okay, I'm looking at the motion, I'm trying to read the defense, then the snap's coming at his feet. You don't want that. That
No,
makes your job a lot more difficult. I think he might have even been 10% higher in the completion percentage in that game, as good as he was, if the snaps were just coming in correctly.
yep,
And that was something that happened in the previous two games too. So I think they can clean that up. But in terms of him looking like a veteran quarterback, who mentioned he's only a junior, you can just tell out there on the field, this guy understands the game. He's confident. He can move around. You saw him buy himself more time once he recognized that Ryan was open. So he's really impressive. I think he's taking that next step for sure. And Roswell, credit to them, they played well. They were in that game. It was 13-7 at the half, but Milton was just able to control the clock in the first half. They looked comfortable the whole night, and they have 5 straight on Roswell now. So,
they do, they
yep.
do. And one last note, I know Craig has one more play he want to do before we close this part of our segment. I just want to say, I think, and I'm gonna continue to say, Milton's my sleeper. Out there in 7A, I think they can go in there and upset any of the teams that they play them, the Colquitt Counties, the Bufords of the world, um, the Mill Creeks. I think they can go in and upset. What I really liked, real quick, is that their defensive line, which was a standout in that game. I think they had over 5+ sacks. You see Christian Pancake Hunter coming in as a freshman, starting. He's getting after the rusher. Caleb Bell won Defensive Player of the Game. He had multi sacks in that game. If they can do that and get after the quarterback and make it tough, get him off his spot, get him uncomfortable, that makes Milton very, very dangerous. And they already have a pretty good secondary and core. I mean, Dylan Williams was just making plays, and that's what he's known for. He's known for just making plays, but a lot of the stuff was pretty good coverage for the most part. I think one of the better secondaries in the country. I think Milton is going to be a dangerous team come playoff time.
Milton on third down in that game, you could just make a highlight off that. That pass rush is insanely good, and it's not just the guys on the edge. It's, as you mentioned, Christian Pancake Hunter had a huge sack at the end of the game. I think on Roswell's second to last possession, just a huge third down play. And so it's all of them. They went after it. They looked outstanding. And also credit to TJ Lester running
Yes.
the ball in that
Yes.
Milton offensive line. I don't think they gave up sacks. They were key on first down. They didn't really have any penalties, any holds, no turnovers. Just played a really clean physical game. So they looked outstanding, and
100%.
definitely think they should be considered in that championship contention. Made it to the semis last year. I don't think they're taking any steps backwards. I think they are going to be fine, and that's just what they do at this point in the season is become unbeatable. Haven't lost a region game in 5 years, so watch out for them. My last one though, definitely a player to watch in these upcoming weeks too. Zayden Benson from North Atlanta. I think North Atlanta is off to their best start ever. They've been 4-0 two other times. One last season, I think in '96 as well. They've never been 5-0. They're going to play Wheeler. That's the team that gave them their first loss last year. But you look at what they're doing this year compared to last year, they're just so much faster. They're more explosive offensively. They just look like a really dangerous team. And Zayden Benson in this last one, it's the same thing we saw against Johns Creek, who obviously didn't look good week one, but 4 catches for 191 yards. He's providing that explosive playmaking on offense. And then he had 2 interceptions against New Manchester the week before, had a bunch of tackles this last game. So he's coming in there, 4 catches. He's not taking every snap offensively. He's going in there in opportune moments. And Ian Reynolds, that offense is just keeping the defense off balance. So I think that'll be a game we'll be watching closely this week. North Atlanta versus Wheeler. If they win this one, 5-0 for the first time, and then in region play, they're going to play Marist in a few weeks. We had the Marist BT game, so that'll be good to see Marist this week. See if North Atlanta can get the win against Wheeler, and then that could be a really, really big 6A matchup coming up.
I agree. Great job pointing that out, Craig. Definitely get to see Maris up close and personal. We know they're a defensive team. Get to see them against Blessed Trinity. So we already see North Atlanta, and the thing that stands out, as you said, Craig, is the speed, man.
Yep.
Speed. And we've seen it with Benson. We've seen it with Darius Malcolm week one, where he's 2 kickoff returns for touchdown. We've seen it with the running back. They look good, and Coach Hall is doing a magnificent job. I don't know if anybody's talking about him as a head coach, but he's doing a great job with that group. He's completely turned them around, has them competitive, has them playing, has them hitting hard. So I just want to give Coach All a shout out, just what the great job that he's doing with that program and just having those guys ready to play every single Friday night.
That running back, I think it's Barnes. I forgot his first name.
Demetrius
Demetrius
Barnes.
Barnes.
That's
Yeah, his numbers were ridiculous the last week too. So
Yep.
it's every position they have tons of speed. It's not
Yep.
just the skill guys. It's the backfield. They look really good. So for sure. All right. Top matchups.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Okay, so one of these are going to be my game of the week. I'm not going to reveal it yet, but one of these are my game of the week. You got Newton versus Westlake. Zion Covington, the running back for Newton. I'm curious to see how he looks. Can Westlake shut them down? Westlake has looked good all year in that tough region with East Coweta and Carrollton. I think that will be a marquee matchup with those two teams. So that's one of my biggest matchups. I got Craig. Another one, I got Lowndes, East Coweta. Lowndes undefeated, looking good. East Coweta, same thing, undefeated. Held Sandy Creek to 14 points.
Yeah.
Their lowest total all year. I talked to Coach Small a little bit. He talked about how he's been just impressed. And get this, Craig, this is the youngest team he's had in 20 years for East Coweta. So the fact they're 4-0, playing well, great start. I think that is an interesting thing to look at as well with that team. Lowndes with Coach Carter has been doing a really great job out there in South Georgia. They're not getting talked about a lot, but I think Lowndes is a team to watch for as well. I think that's a marquee matchup between two great teams. At 7:30 on Friday, I think you don't get much better than that this week. And then my last one, I know this is one of yours, Craig, but I had Douglas and Holly Innocence as well. I just think, Jonte Gilbert, Holly Innocence looking good this season, running the ball really well. We got to talk to them at our Georgia High School Media Day, and they look really good, man. And I think it's going to be interesting. Douglas' only loss this season was to Miller Grove, close game, and then they took it out Stone Mountain. The next week beat them 68-0. So lost by I think 3 or 4 points and came out the gates just smoking. So those are some of my top matchups.
Yep. I really like the East Coweta Lowndes one, first of all. You mentioned how good East Coweta's defense looked. That was game planning. They knew Lattimore, they knew Sandy Creek was going to come in, run the ball. They prepared for it, shut it down. I think they'll have a similar good game plan this week. I think East Coweta actually won that game last year. I think that was the big upset. And then you have Coach Carter going down there. I think it'll be interesting. I don't really know too much about either of those teams, but I mean, whoever comes out of that win certainly will be interesting in region play. And then the reason the Douglas Holy Innocents one is so interesting, Holy Innocents is the real deal in 4A. They're one of the toughest teams to match up against because they run the triple option. You talk to Coach Winter, he doesn't even know each play who's getting the ball. I mean, they have so many different guys where they're reading the defense, they're trying to wear you out, they're getting 3 yards every play, they're reading what you're doing, they're looking for soft spots, weaknesses, and it just can wear you out, and then they can take shots when they want to. Defensively, Holiness has been just as just polished and tough. Last year they had 25, they were plus 25 in the turnover margin. Really stingy defense. And so Douglas, they're going to have to be physical, disciplined defensively, and then just can they sustain drives and try to keep the ball out of Holy Innocent's hands. That's going to be a key. I think when you look at that Miller Grove loss, I mean, that was tough coming off a 4 days pretty much of a Saturday.
100 plus degrees.
140, 150 degrees
on the field.
And then, a short week against Miller Grove. And then, I think they're going to be just fine. But definitely a matchup everyone should be looking at because Douglas is going to be in that region with Carver, Atlanta, Cedar Grove, Sandy Creek. I think they're going to be a lot more competitive in it this year.
Yes.
They really have a chance. And if they win this game, I think they already surpassed last year's win total. I think they're already tied with it right now. So
pretty impressive, man. And they look a lot better this year. So I know that's the top matchup as well to look out for. I know you got a couple, Craig, that you kind of circled. I think you had a troop one on there, I
Oh
think.
yeah, the Troop Whitewater one. I mean, every game in this region is going to be intriguing. Troop looked like they were going to sweep Region 4 last year, and then they ended up falling to LaGrange in the season finale. That didn't drop them out of the one seed, but that LaGrange win ended up keeping Stars Mill out with a 7-3 record. So this week, I think Trinity Christian's off, but you're going to have Whitewater and Troop. Whitewater's a great team. They made the playoffs last year as either the 2 or 3 seed. And then you're going to have LaGrange and Stars Mill in that crucial region opener as well. So last year it was, I think, a one-score game, last possession. There's been a bunch of those in that region. When Trinity Christian beat Stars Mill last year, I think it was a 7-3 game. So all these region games are always close in there, but I just want to see how Troop stacks up because they look like the team to beat, but this will be the first big test. So big region game. And then there's another interesting one. I felt a little better about it before last week. Madison County against North Oconee. I think North Oconee, Troop, Benedictine, obviously. Trying to think who else in 4A. Your Bainbridge, Perry, teams like that. But the Troop has a good chance. North Oconee has a good chance, but they're going to play Madison County in their region opener. Madison County just barely won last week to Cherokee Bluff. I think it was overtime or at one point. I thought they'd be a little further ahead of them, but I think Madison County might be the toughest Region 8 challenge for North Oconee, and they're going to be facing off the gate. So North Oconee, if they go in and blow out Madison County, I think they're going to just cakewalk to the region title.
I have to agree with that. Those are going to be some interesting matchups to watch out for. But that's what we got, man. It'll be a great week 5. A lot of fun. We got our matchup, obviously, Blessed Trinity and Marist. But we'll go ahead and deeper detail on that with our own individual shows. Craig's show tomorrow, drop for GHCC title, and then my show on Thursday. So we'll break that down a little bit further on those shows, not on this one. But let's keep it going. Craig, who is your best looking high school team so far?
I have 3. I think at this point, best looking, it's Walton, Benedictine, and Peachtree Ridge. I say Walton because they dominated just historic games. They look outstanding. Benedictine just beat Ware County, 2-time defending state champs. That's outstanding. And then Peachtree Ridge because, as you've been saying, their start shows that they aren't just going to be good this season. They're showing for the future. And so that's why I put those 3 slightly different reasons, but I think at this point, which programs are just looking outstanding, just mid-season form, playing at bright futures. I think it's those 3.
Can't go back wrong with that list right there, Craig. Walton's obviously one for me. I mean, they're beating teams 60-7 and pulling their starters at halftime. So, I mean, they've just looked great from week 1 on to onslaught. You call us biased. I mean, they just look like one of the best teams in the state. Another for me is Houston County. They're not getting a lot of love, but they will on the road against a real good Perry team, beat them. Again, I think it goes back to that Preacher Ridge point with the Houston County young team. Got a young quarterback. Antoine Hill is only going to continue to get better. We're going to see them in a couple of weeks on TV against Lee County. And they're 4-0 right now. So I think they've looked really good out there in 6A. They is one of my teams I've got looking really good this season. They're number 2. I think number 3 for me is East Coweta. They're looking really good. They've pretty much blanked opponents. They're holding teams, I think, to below 15 points this season. The defense has been looking elite. They can run the ball. They can throw it. Really good senior leadership on the seniors that they have. And I think Coach Small is just doing a great job. And then last for me is Buford. I got to throw Buford in there. Just so many expectations coming into the season. Sometimes you can see a team kind of falter or not live up to it. I think so far they've played a tough schedule, right? They've played the St. Francis Academies. They've played the Mallard Creeks. They've played some tough teams in North Cobbs, and they've looked pretty good. We got a chance to see Dylan Rayola air the ball out against North Cobb, and he did a great job. So he's on TV featured again against their matchup with Carver Atlanta this week, and we'll see him actually next week when they play against Marietta, also on TV. So can't wait to see him up close and personal, see how he looks. Number 1 player in the country. But yeah, I think Buford overall. We'll see how the offense continues to look good. That could have been that game. Same thing with kind of Milton get their offense kickstarted and going. We know they struggled a little bit. Defense is really, really elite. So I think Buford is up there for me too.
Yep, and I think all those teams have been great on both sides of the ball. Um, Peachtree Ridge, let's just go a little deeper. They beat Winder Barrow 46 nothing. I think that was the final. Built a huge lead. Their defense is shutting down. Their offense has been unstoppable. The week before, huge win over Loganville. So I think they've just gotten better each week as well. And so that's that's really dangerous if you're playing them in the coming weeks. They weren't on anyone's radar. You liked your playmakers. Darnell Kelly, what he's done through these first 4 weeks, seen some sophomores before. They come in, they're like, hey, pay attention to me. I'm going to be good. It's like, okay, I'll watch. No, he's tearing it up every week. He's having an unbelievable season. Um, it's not just the numbers. I mean, he's a leader. He's exciting. The fans are buying in. The entire community is excited about what they're doing. That is be pretty remarkable. And last year, obviously, they didn't have a lot of these pieces. They had a good start. They suffered some injuries. That's just not the case this year. They're getting better. The young guys that didn't have experience have it now, and so I think they're confident that they can play with anyone. I don't think they're scared.
No, I don't think they are, and that was the reason, going into the season. I know they weren't ranked, but Craig, you're one of the few that have put them in your rankings, obviously, right now. But they're one of the teams I had winning that region, even with Norcross and Meadow Creek and North Gwinnett and Duluth and Berkmar and others. I just felt so confident with, talking to their head coach Matt Helmer before the season started.
A
Um,
great coach, by the way.
yeah, great coach. Does a really good job. And then, learning more about his team and then the young guys they got, Dorian Barney, Mason Abernathy, whose brother's Miles, having a great season. I just felt comfortable. And then we got to see him. The icing on the cake was seeing them in close and personal and what they were doing in that 7-on-7 tournament, seeing Kelly air out the ball. And I was a little nervous. I was like, well, Kelly looks really good. And I think he could have a good season. But I was like, hopefully he gets to start because I know they had a senior player that plays baseball. Apparently he's probably went that route. But I was nervous that he wouldn't get the play. So I'm glad Coach Helmrich went with, Kelly and allowing him to flourish, and now, man, he's going to have so many build blocks. He's going to have 3 years basically as a starter, and will continue to get better and better. And he's already on the national radar for recruiting, and there's already been highlighted by ESPN and others. So he has a bright future. And I think this season, as you said, they're going to be right there in the contention. They could be dangerous.
Yeah, they got a big one against Meadow Creek coming up. I think they're going to continue to do well. And then in that 7-on-7, let's just put it into perspective. They played, I think it was the Norcross game, and we know that's going to be a big one in the real thing coming up in region play. That's the biggest blowout we saw the entire tournament. I mean, these were abbreviated games for the weather, and they're putting up 50 points. Just the skill guys, both sides of the ball. It's like, wow. So I think that kind of just shows like the hunger these guys had, and then to get out there, start racking up these wins. Talk about the Abernathy brothers, how young they are. Defense is playing well. Offense is confident out there. They are definitely impressive so far. And then let's throw Gainesville in there also. They have they've looked strong as well. Some big victories on that schedule. The one over Marist week 1, and then they've really looked dominant these last few weeks.
100% big win, big out of state win versus Coconut Creek as well. Excuse me. And yeah, they look good. Gavin Hall looks good. Julius Columbus, underrated player, I've seen like 2 or 3 times on their players of the game. So they're doing a good job. Baxter Wright's underrated quarterback there in 6A. So I think they have a chance to be right there. And I know they're number 1 in your rankings, Craig, and a lot of people's rankings right now in 6A. I think Gainesville's right there. I'm still roll with Hughes. I believe in Prentice Nolan and Coach Boone, but I know Gainesville's going to be right there when it's said and done. All right, let's move to our last part of our segment. Underrated player on the tear. I'll start, Craig. Jordan Triplett for me is 902 yards rushing, 11 touchdowns. He's averaging 300 yards per game. Plays for St. Simon's Island. I think he's doing a magnificent job for the program, and leads the state right now in rushing.
It's a good one. I already mentioned mine, and I'm just going to go a little deeper into it. But Keenan Phillips of Bainbridge. So I mean, this is a guy, career numbers. He's already rushed for close to 2,700 yards, 41 all time touchdowns. Didn't play much as a freshman. Pretty big sophomore season last year, Region 1 Player of the Year, 21 touchdowns, 1,164 yards. So far this season, and he has picked up some offers, I think App State, Jacksonville State, some other ones. So he's a 3-star, but I think this season the step he's taken it's pretty significant. So 85 carries so far. That's over half of what he had last year in 13 games. He had the 31 last week. 631 yards, 8 touchdowns, 160 yards per game. He averaged 90 last year. He has 300-yard rushing games so far, and has just been killing it. Also plays baseball. Also runs track. Let's look at the game by game. So against Elka, season opener, 17 carries, 206.3 rushing touchdowns. Coffee, it's a tough team, 12 carries, 84 yards, touchdown. They lost to Thomas County Central, who has looked really good as well, but 139 yards. And then this last week, 31 carries, 202 yards, 4 touchdowns. The thing that stands out with that schedule, they have yet to play another 4A school. So against that competition, I think Bainbridge definitely they're in my top 10. I just think he has a chance to be all state material once again.
100% underrated player on its hair. Those are two players we got for this week for that segment. So we're going to wrap it there with our high school and jump into some college. Hope you guys enjoyed that segment. Thanks to all the people that's tuned in. Definitely use that chat box below and like, comment, and subscribe. We appreciate it. All right. So, got to lead the second segment of our show with this question. Is it over for the Alabama Crimson Tide? I think that's the question everybody's asking. Nick Saban has been kind of ho-hum on not sure. Some people are saying he might retire after the season. Some people are saying the dynasty's dead. I'm not going to go that far, and they still have a chance. But I had Texas going in there and beating them. I thought last year they looked good against Bama. Only lost 2019. And Quentin Edwards was slinging that football. And then this year they gotten better. Bring back Xavier Worthy. They didn't have, obviously, Bijan Robinson in the NFL now. But I just thought it looked like a good team, man. And Texas going in now, they're number 4 in the AP poll. Road victory. Not easy to do in that atmosphere and environment. I think Bama will get better after, but I think it's going to be tough to get back. But I think there is a way they can. I think if they go to the SEC championship game, they win the SEC West, and they can maybe beat Georgia or whoever comes out of the SEC East, I think there's a path with them again to the college football playoff.
Yeah, I mean, certainly they aren't dead this season, but they have lost their killer instinct, that's for sure. And I'm not one of those guys that thinks, oh, the players aren't upset, so that's why. It's like, no, it's on the field. They are no longer invincible when they go out there. That perception around the program is dead. It just is. You saw it last year in a lot of these close games they had. It's like they could have been a one-loss team or a no-loss team, but they also could have dropped a couple. They aren't blowing teams out. They aren't running away with victories, and they just haven't been dominant with that killer instinct that some of these other teams seem to have. It's like, when was their last big blowout? When was the last time they had a game where everyone's like, "That's the best team in the country"? It's just been a couple seasons.
I have to agree with you, and I don't think they run it as good as they used to. I think that's been a big part of the offense. You look at the stat line, Jason McClellan, 12 carries, 45 yards. That's your leading rusher. Jalen Milroe had some turnovers, 53% completion percentage, 14 for 27, 255 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. And then you go look at Texas. Quinn Edwards lit the defense up, right? 350 yards, pretty much 3 touchdowns. Jatavian Sanders, 5 catches, 114 yards. I think the biggest thing with Bama has just been they have not had, to me, an elite quarterback in a while. Well, I won't say that. They have Bryce Young last year. He was elite. But I feel like it has not matched up completely whole with the team. When I say that, I mean like they haven't had like a good to elite quarterback. They did have Bryce Young, and then great receiving weapons, right? Or an elite receiver. I feel like Bama's missing that. Bama's missing that elite rusher, that elite receiver. You get him the ball in space, it's over. You get him the ball, he's a tough cover. Like we know historically, they've had top talent come through there. The Derrick Henrys, the Mark Ingrams. Um, I know I'm missing some guys. Those are just two that just come off the top of my head. But receiver wise, the Henry Ruggs, the Devontae Smiths, the Jerry Judys, the
Calvin.
Calvin Ridley, Julio Jones. Um, they've always had that, and I feel like they're missing that. And obviously, it's gonna take time for Millwall to grow, and then we'll see what happens as far as the season goes. But I feel like that's a lot of what they've been missing, and I think that's why they've struggled a little bit.
Yeah, I think a loss like the Texas one, it shows, first of all, how hard it is for any team to accomplish the dominance they have had. It's really hard. It's not just the talented players, but it's just the attitude. I mean, we used to watch a Bama game. It's like, oh man, that other team, I kind of feel sorry for their offense. They're about to get lit up. You guys like Reuben Foster going in on special teams and just taking people's heads off. They've kind of they've lost that edge, I'd say. Just that physicality. This is the toughest team in the nation. Uh, Anytime you play it, you're going to feel it. I don't think they necessarily have it. And then, yeah, it's like offensively, when they were successful, they'd have that superstar that could match up with anyone at his position in the country.
Yes.
Georgia has it with Brock Bowers. He's the best tight end. They need guys like that at those offensive positions.
They've just missed it. They've had Cameron Latus, they had Irv Smiths of the world. They've always had an elite playmaker. I think that's the word I was looking
or
for.
a Heisman running back.
Something, and I feel like Bama's been missing that lately. They have not had that show up on the field. So I don't think it's over. But there is a pathway for them to get back, especially next year. I mean, next year you have 12 teams, but we'll see what happens. I think they'll rebound this week, obviously against South Florida, and then they'll continue to be there. But they're at top 10, so we'll see how it shakes out. A lot of crazy stuff has happened. We've seen every year, teams with multiple losses gets in. But we'll see how it shakes out. It's still early, man. It's only going into week 3, so that's a week 2 game. Tough. You'll see Texas a lot next year, obviously, because they moved to SEC. But that's our thoughts on that. I do have a game this week on upset alert, though. I'm gonna go Tennessee at Florida. I know Florida has not looked good, but beat this stat line, y'all. 31-21 all time against Tennessee. Florida is, and before last year's win for Tennessee, they won 5 straight matchups against Tennessee. Florida had. So we'll see if they get back on track with Matt Napier and the crew and everything like that. We'll find out. But I got that game kind of circled. Going to the Swamp, going in that tough atmosphere. We'll see. I like Joe Milton. I like the offense. But can their defense match up and get the stops? I think is the biggest thing. I know they're going to score and put points on the board. How will the defense match up against that Florida offense? I think is the biggest question. So I got that game circled as upset alert.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. It's like, what's Tennessee's weakness? It's their defense. And then you have a Florida team that early this season, they struggled figuring out kind of what they wanted to do offensively. Are we going to try to win with the run, win with the pass? They ended up doing neither. So if you play a defense where you get things going, get in a shootout, defense can step up, make some timely plays. I think you have that opportunity. So should be a good game. But I want to say one more thing about Bama. You guys, I am not a Bama hater. I'm not. I respect Bama. People, it's like, oh, I'm going to hear Craig say this. Then if Bama beats Georgia, I'm going to rub it in his face. It's like, no. I know that they're a tough team, but they have to have a win in the weeks ahead where they look like the top team. They have to. Last year, they didn't the entire season. And so until they have that performance, I think a lot of fans are going to be frustrated.
They need a signature win, basically. Yeah. They need a signature win. And they're going to have that opportunity. They still got LSU on there. They got Auburn on there. They got Ole Miss. So Texas A&M. They got definitely opportunities to show a staple win, and it's still early, so we'll see what happens. It'll be interesting, and I agree. I don't think Craig's a Bama hater. We know how good Bama is. I used to look at Bama as like, man, this is the New England Patriots of college football because they were always good. Dynasty was like, dang, Bama's there again. Dang, Bama's there again. So it's been a little different the past couple seasons, and it can happen like that in college football. We'll see. But Georgia does look good. Speaking of
Yes.
Georgia, let's talk about this big matchup. South Carolina playing against them at home. I think it'll be a great game. Um, Georgia's looked good offensively. They, rebounded last week against, I think, Ball State, and Carson Beck looked good, and Brock Bowers just looks unguardable and uncoverable right now. Best tight ends in the country. But I like South Carolina. I just like them throwing the football. I don't like them defensively per se, but offensively, Spencer Riley's doing a good job. I think it plays in the hands of Georgia in this game. And the reason I say that is because of their offensive line. They gave up 9 sacks week 1 to North Carolina. You already have a dominant front with Georgia that's probably better than North Carolina's. So I can imagine what that defensive line is going to do to the offensive line in this game. So that's my keynote for South Carolina. You got to run the football. You got to make it easier for Spencer Rattler. But I think that's the keynote in this game. How will that offensive line look against that defensive front? That's what I got circled as the big matchup.
Yeah, great stats. This will be the first Power 5 program Georgia's played this season. They've only given up 1 score defensively in both those games. It's a very tough team to score touchdowns against. Ohio State was the only team last year that did it.
Yep.
Only team recently that has done it. So touchdowns will be hard to come by. And then if you do strike early, that's just going to piss the defense off even more. They're going to come after you. Offensively, they've had the slow starts, just 7 points in the first quarter. Then they've gotten going. And then if you look at the stat line, I've never seen so many guys involved in the offense. It's just ridiculous. Last week, 12 different guys had receptions. I think 10 of them multiple. Even in the backfield, you got like 7 different guys. So they've had the blowouts. They've gotten a bunch of guys involved. I just think Georgia's just playing with house money at this point, and they even have the luxury. I mean, obviously, it's a big game. They want to win this one. I think they will. But in the weeks ahead, it's like to think that this Georgia team, with all this talent, all this depth, could still stumble in a game. And because they're ranked number 1 now, they aren't having to come at the potential championship from a number 10 spot and climb. They've been number 1, so they have even 1 loss could still position them just fine. I think that takes the pressure off, and they're just going to go out there and dominate. I really think so.
That's it. I mean, it's a home game. You get to stick it to one of your rivals against South Carolina that hasn't, been relevant for some years. They had a good stretch towards the end of the season last year. So we'll see. Obviously, opened and lost. I think they ended up winning the second game. Let me just check that real quick for you guys. Yeah, they beat Furman 47-21. Big win against Georgia on the road. Then they play Mississippi State and Tennessee. And Florida. So their schedule definitely gets thick and tougher. So we'll see how they're able to respond. I think it's the big question for obviously South Carolina. But we're gonna move it to Tech real quick. As you guys know, I cover Tech. Craig is real big on Georgia. So Tech won a big victory against South Carolina State, 48-13. They have Ole Miss on the road. In that game, they are 17-point underdogs. So that's going to be tough. Kennard named Lineman of the Week, 5 tackles, fumble, 1 interception, 1 fumble recovery. He's the second player in Georgia Tech history to have a trifecta. So great game from him against South Carolina State. I think the interesting is the bowl projections right now for Georgia Tech is they're projected to make a bowl. They have not made a bowl game since 2018. That's a long time.
Crazy.
2018, they have not made a bowl game. So they looked good. They fixed some of their issues, I think, against South Carolina State. They put up nearly 600 yards of offense. I think the key is going to be their tackling. Still having some tackling issues against Ole Miss, a really good offense in Jackson Dart, and they can air the ball out, put a lot of points up on Tulane. They're going to have to be able to get some stops, force some turnovers. I think if Kennard, he may not necessarily have to have the trifecta game, but if he can go and get some QB hits, force some batted throws, and make it tough for Ole Miss. They could potentially get a big time victory on the road, but I know they're not favored. They're going to give it to Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss. It's going to be tough atmosphere, but I like how Georgia Tech's competed. Unfortunate loss week one against Louisville, a game they should have won, but I think they're doing a good job under Brent Key. They continue to get better and better. Defensively, they just got to get a little bit better with the tackling. I think Haynes King has done a good job. The playmakers have as well. So we'll see what happens going forward. But big time game against Ole Miss this weekend.
Yeah, that that one will be exciting. Do you know what time it kicks off?
3:30.
Okay.
Yes, sir. 3:30.
Now I'm gonna have to tune into that one. It was so disappointing they lost that first game. It's like, man, what an opportunity that would have been. But still, they're gonna be competitive every single week this season. 17-point underdog. I don't think that's gonna be the case. They're building that excitement. You don't quite realize how, I guess, down they have been in the recent seasons until you bring up a stat like them not making a bowl game since 2018. That's crazy.
Yep.
But yeah, they have really struggled. So this is that big year they need to turn around. A win over Ole Miss. I mean, that'd be that'd be the biggest statement they've made in quite some time. But I just think getting better, playing another exciting game, giving yourself a chance to win, it's a victory in itself.
100%. And then we're going to move to our last part of this segment to conclude college football. Um, there's not a lot of big matchups this week, y'all, to be honest. It's really week 4 where we see a lot of really good matchups. This one is not really the week for that, besides that Florida-Tennessee game, maybe South Carolina, Georgia, but not a lot of marquee matchups this week. But what's been your most surprising teams in college football through 2 weeks that you could say, man, they've really impressed me. I've been surprised with their performance.
I think there's three that just stand out early. I wouldn't say they're the most impressive, but it's like, okay, they're going to make noise this year. I think it's Duke, Miami, and then Oregon. I think Duke and Miami, they're showing me the ACC has gotten a lot deeper.
4-1 against the SEC.
Yeah, exactly. And it's because of teams like that. And I mean, UNC, I knew they were going to be good. They've been impressive as well. But yeah, Duke's win over Clemson week one, that was epic. And then Miami, they're starting to set up some big games in the future. 2-0, that's a good start. And then Oregon, you've talked about their big time matchup coming up with Colorado, and
Yep.
they have certainly looked good through 2 weeks so far.
No, 100%. And speaking of Miami, really quick, to Craig's point, they got some major matchups, y'all. Real quick, Bethune-Cookman Thursday, they should win that handedly. They got Temple, Georgia Tech. That'll be interesting at home. Then they got UNC on the road. I got that game circled as an upset alert. UNC struggled this week for the second straight year against App State. App State took them to double overtime, and they were able to kick the field goal and win. So UNC, decent, good team, good defensive line, but I still got them on, I'm not technically all the way sold on UNC, honestly. Then they got Clemson at home, Virginia. Virginia hasn't looked good this season. NC State, that Florida State game on the road is going to be a big one, big one. So I got that one circled as well. That should be an intriguing game. We'll see. That might be an ABC, ESPN kind of a game. That's later in the season, November 11th. So major time matchups coming up for the program. For me, it's going to be Colorado for me. I think 2-0, getting the road victory versus TCU. They looked pretty good. They got a major ESPN game this week against Colorado State. I think they should win that as well. And then the following week, they play Oregon on the road. That's going to be, I believe, a primetime matchup, guys. Let me get it right. Yes, September 23rd, 3:30 kickoff at Oregon, and then they play USC the week after at home. So we're going to find out a lot about Colorado in the next 2 to 3 weeks, I think. I mean, obviously, we've seen what they can do. We've seen how elite they are. We've seen how good Shador looks. We've seen how good their running game is. We've seen how much better the offensive line has improved. We've seen how good Travis Hunter looks. And we've seen how good Jimmy Horn and all that, and how they look collectively as a team. But that's where you're going to find out, hey, if they can contend and compete, and if they end up beating both or even one of those teams, they might have a chance to have a conversation maybe in the college football playoff. We will see. I think to do that, they got to beat both of them. USC is already in that conversation, but if you go and you upset them at home and then you go on the road and beat a really good Oregon team, you might have to be having a different conversation. So that's one for me.
Yep.
Another one is Washington State. Major victory against Wisconsin. Was a ranked team. The quarterback is just doing a magnificent job. I want to give him a quick shout out. I did a segment on my own TikTok channel, and I just was impressed, and he really impressed me with his performance. I mean, against this team, he had Cameron Ward 20 for 32, 212 yards, 2 touchdowns, 17 carries, 43 yards. He had his breakout season in 2021. We hit through for 4,000 plus yards, 47 touchdowns. A little bit of a down year last year, 3,000 yards, I think 32 touchdowns, but still, the kid can throw it. He can run it. He does a good job. That's another surprising team I have this year looking good. So those are I only got two. So those are my two just surprising teams that have done a magnificent job. And Craig, I know you had a hot take on Michigan, so I'm gonna throw it to you
Oh
to wrap it
yeah.
up.
So I've been checking the college football rankings, and I think there's probably like 80 voters. I don't know the number, but someone keeps putting Michigan number one every single week, and it's the only person doing it. I've seen Florida State got a couple. There's been other teams, but someone is just putting Michigan number one every single week, and it's just like, what's wrong with that person? Is it?
Hmm.
Are they a fan? Are they convinced? They convinced just, you know what? Never mind like what's been happening. I know Georgia's a favorite, but I just think that the personnel is there. And it's like I just don't understand the logic. So it's like either that person is just a Michigan homer. They are just one of these people that likes to go against the grain and wants to be the lone voter, but it's like this person clearly just they probably think the moon landing was filmed in Antarctica or something because
I mean, yeah, right now 33 against East Carolina, first game, second game 35-7 against UNLV. I mean, you gotta look at the competition they've played. I think their biggest games will come into the world towards the end of the season, right? Penn State, that'll be a road game for them, November 11th, and then Ohio State, the big rivalry between those two teams, November 25th, at home. So I just think, so far they've looked good, but I think Georgia's been clear-cut the number one team in the country.
yeah. So yeah, that person they have the right to vote for their number one. It just doesn't make much sense, but
No, it
it's
doesn't.
funny.
No, 100%. But we're going to leave the college segment there. We'll have more stuff next week for you guys. We're going to wrap up the show with a third segment, final segment, NFL. What are your thoughts on week one? Let's just talk storylines. What are your thoughts?
Well, I don't like Thursday night games because I like enjoying the Chiefs on Sunday. Because if I watch them on Thursday, then the weekend comes. It's like, man, I wish the Chiefs were playing. So they play the Thursday game. No Travis Kelsey. I'm like, all right, Detroit, is this really going to happen? I didn't feel good going into it. They lose by one. Complete, just awful game. The drop passes, the missed opportunities. It was disappointing. But there were a lot of teams that got off to rocky starts. It wasn't the worst, but
It was not.
it's just, I don't know. I was never excited about that game. I had a bad feeling about it. And yeah, I'd like to forget it. We need to find that win column ASAP.
For sure. And I thought, a couple standouts for me, just surprised. I thought the Falcons, as Jimmy put in the comment section, rise up. I was really impressed with, obviously Bijan and Tyler Algier. They did a great job. Bijan is going to be great for you guys. But defensively, I thought they carried the load. They looked so much better and more competent than the past previous years. And I just thought, Jesse Bates looked like he made a big impact for you guys. 2 interceptions. So I thought it was a big win for the Falcons. They did a great job week one beating the Carolina Panthers. Setting some momentum for the season and trying to contend. So that's one of my standouts. Just thoughts on week one. I thought the Dolphins looked really, really good. With the injury to Rodgers, which we will talk about in a little bit, I think they're in the driver's seat to win that division. I really do. And like I said, it's all obviously incumbent and dependent upon if Tua can stay healthy. but he looked really good week 1 against the Chargers, who look like they still got problems defensively. They can't stop a lick. All that talent they got, same thing. Only thing that worries me, same thing, their defense, man. Because when you play elite teams, your defense has to be able to get stops. You can't stop nobody like the Dolphins couldn't. It worries me. But Tyreek Hill, 11 catches, 215 yards, 2 touchdowns. Tua, I think over 400 yards passing. Looked good. We know we can air the ball out. So long as he can stay healthy, Dolphins got a chance, I think. Definitely in the division and maybe even in the playoffs.
Yep, you're right about the Chargers though. It's like they just don't have an elite pass rush. If they're in these short down situations, they don't have a guy that's going to burst through, disrupt the play. Defensively didn't look good, but Tua, that's a good game. And then offensively, the Chargers were just fine. So they beat a good team. It's a good result for them for sure. Um, the Falcons, they play a lot of those rookie quarterbacks this year. They got the first one. I think that's key for them. The division is winnable, and I think getting the victory in the opener at home, it's a big sign. And I thought Kyle Pitts made some good catches. Yeah, defensive line Lorenzo Carter made some plays. So I think they're playing with a lot of energy. They look good, looked exciting, and it was a good win for sure.
Yes, and sorry for laughing, Jimmy. You cracked me
Cowboys.
up with your comment. Yeah, I'm not even a Cowboys fan, so I wouldn't say that. What I will say and what I've been saying going into the season, they have a top 2, top 3 roster. They do. It's elite. But it's the same question year in, year out, right? We know how elite of a team they are, but it's the offense, the quarterback. Against the Giants, he only threw for 143 yards for Dak, no touchdowns. CD had 4 catches, 77 yards. Elite defensively, right? 7 sacks, 3 takeaways, pick 6, and then they blocked the field goal and returned it for a touchdown. That's fantastic, right? And their defense is going to supply the pressure, right? Elite pass rushers in Demarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons, 2 elite corners in Trevon Diggs and Stephon Gilmore. They have all the tools to be elite and potentially in the contention conversation. The issue is the offense, which we've been seeing for years. Tony Pollard looked good, 70 yards, 2 touchdowns. But can Dak against a top elite team? Giants are probably not going to be a top elite team this year. Let's just be honest. They may be a fringe playoff team, maybe, if they get it together. But when you play the San Frans, when you play the Phillies, um, when you play a top team, elite team across the AFC, Chiefs, I think despite even losing week 1, they'll be up there. When you play those kind of teams, your quarterback has to play. You cannot expect your defense to do what they did week 1, right? Always. It's so difficult to hold a team under 20 points in the NFL today, right? Your team's not going to be able to do that all the time. It's just not going to happen, right? And offense, usually, and if you think about it too, Craig, usually the first couple of weeks of the season, the defenses are really good because the offense have to get acclimated and acquainted, used to what the defense are throwing. And then kind of weeks 5 and on, the offense get rolling. They get throwing the ball. So the defense is going to always keep them in games, I think, and they have elite roster, but can the offense match up? So I'm not going to say that, but I thought week 1, if you want to send a statement, they did that.
Yeah, and there were a lot of lower scoring games this week, and
Yes.
we got to talk about the result last night. I don't know how the Bills didn't find a way to win that game. That's absolutely crazy considering the circumstances and then just the turnovers. That is the last thing the Bills wanted to see from
Franchise
Josh
quarterback.
Allen. Yeah, this year that was the biggest emphasis last season. He's turning the ball over too much. Well, they would have won the game without all those picks, and it wasn't just like unfortunate picks. It's like he's throwing into double coverage. The defense just a step ahead of him, getting in front of the receivers. It's like those throws were not even close to being completed. They're literally picked off.
Yeah, I think for me, that was one of my biggest surprises. Jets winning without Rodgers. Rodgers goes down on the 4th snap of the game. He's done, already confirmed, torn Achilles. I just think it's like the bit. Like, how do you lose that game? Like, you were up 13-3. Like, that's the question. How do you lose that game?
95% chance of winning.
Literally, and
according
their
to the odds.
offense was not the same. They didn't score another touchdown, Craig, into 4 minutes and 55 seconds left in the game with an absolutely fantastic play and spectacular play by Garrett Wilson to go get the touchdown score. How do you lose that?
Yeah,
It doesn't make sense. And And you have to think, and there was questions last year about Allen, right? The regression. And this is why I didn't have him as high. A lot of people question, oh, Naj, why is your top 5 or your top 10 like this? Why do you have Allen so low? And you know what? I hate to say this, Craig. I feel for Bills fans. And I only say that because I feel like they're in the same situation that I was as a Bengals fan when we had Dalton. Dalton was good, sometimes, at times, rarely, great, but we could just never get over the hump. And I feel like it's going to be that situation for the Bills. I know it's week 1. You don't want to overreact, but 4 turnovers, man, 3 INTs. One of them was just like a punt. You just threw it, whatever. Okay, we can let that one go. But still, 3 turnovers? Come on, man. You got to be better. And I thought, speaking of my Bengals, I thought our performance was absolutely, terrible. But I'll take our performance all day over that kind of performance. Even though they only lost by a touchdown and we looked at absolutely putrid offensively, but at least I know with Burrow, he's not going to jeopardize the team, right? He's not going to put him in positions when the defense has pretty much won the game and put us in a precarious situation where we can't get out of. Josh Allen has been doing that for the longest, man. And I just feel like, I hate to say it, I feel like they're going to hit their ceiling. I just feel like the Bills are just not going to be able to get where they want to go, even though they have a good roster, good defense. I mean, they only allowed 13 points essentially,
Yeah,
16
they've
points.
been trying to add pieces around it, but it's
I
just the
mean,
turnovers.
you can't do it.
Yeah.
You cannot do it.
And even if, as you said, if it was just the 2 interceptions, it's the fumble. Like it's that extra one when they need it late in the game, just letting the other team back in it. They had a 95% chance of winning that game. All they had to do was find one more drive and just a really bad result, and then the special teams touchdown at the end. So
Yeah, that's
a tough loss for sure, but there were some other bad ones. I mean, no team's gonna look perfect week 1, but
No.
that's just
Kind of
turnovers. That's
inexcusable.
the worst thing that they wanted to see. He's got to protect the football. He's got to.
That's it. And now he already leads the league in interceptions. So we'll see how it goes. And, obviously I know they've had him in MVP conversations, but I just think to me, man, you turn over the ball that much, man. It's not a recipe for success, man. And that's why I have Allen where I have him. It's not that he's not good. He is, but he reminds me of Brett Favre in a way that he's just going to throw those turnovers. He's going to beat as a gunslinger, which is not a bad thing, but he's just going to put you in bad spots you get out of. So, I mean, we'll see how it pans out. Good win for them. The season goes, I mean, I don't know. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't believe in Zach Wilson. Sorry. No disrespect, but, I know they have a pretty good roster, elite roster, but I just don't believe in Zach Wilson. I don't. So maybe they'll be able to maybe get a wild card spot, maybe in the AFC, but the AFC is good. It's tough. I don't know. We're going to have to see. They got a good test coming up against the Cowboys this week. So
for sure. So that's one of the week 2s. Jaguars Chiefs.
Yes, that's going to be a game. That should be on CBS, 1:00. That's that kind of a game. Yes, because I think the question is going to be, okay, I think pretty sure Kelsey's going to play. How will the Chiefs receivers rebound from week 1 when they didn't really help out Mahomes? I thought your defense looked pretty good against the Lions, Craig. I'm not going to lie. I thought they were getting pressure on them. They were making them tough throws. I thought your defense did a spectacular job. So if your defense is improving, now you just need your pass catchers to come up. So I think Kelsey obviously aids that. And how will Jacksonville look? We know Jacksonville is a team that's trying to contend in the AFC South, win the second consecutive title in the AFC South, and have a pretty good team. Went on the road and beat Indianapolis week 1. Trevor looked it pretty good. Calvin Ridley, the resurgence of Calvin Ridley, he had a great game, over I think 100 yards. He'd be a great threat for them. Evan Ingram, Christian Kirk, Travis Etienne looked good as well. I think and then that's a rematch of the AFC divisional game. That'll be a good game.
No, for sure. Jacksonville, I really liked their team last year. Thought they were a dangerous matchup in the playoffs last year for sure. Not just in the Chargers game, that insane comeback. And obviously, I'm a big Trevor Lawrence fan. I want to see how he looks this season against the Chiefs. That'll be a good one.
100%. And the other games to look forward to, Raiders Bills. I think I put that one on there. And know some people are like, well, why did you put that one? How will the Bills rebound after that loss? Inexcusable loss. They should have won against the Jets, I thought, in my opinion. Raiders looked pretty good week 1 against a tough divisional opponent against the Broncos. Can Jimmy G, and that offense continue to look, pretty good how it looked. And it's a road game. It's a home game for the Bills. Can the Raiders go in there and push the Bills to 0-2? I think that's a big storyline. And then the other game I got, Dolphins, Patriots. Why? Patriots look pretty good against the Super Bowl runner-up in the Philadelphia Eagles, right? Early on, it didn't look too good. It was 16-0, but the resolve that they had, the resilience to kind of come back and keep fighting and get back in the game, make it tough, held the Eagles to just 9 points, 3 field goals in the second half. If their defense can play that against a really good elite team, an offensive team, I think it's going to be interesting to see. We know Dolphins probably got the same firepower that the Philly has. Sunday night matchup, how will they look against the Dolphins? Can they force Tua into some bad throws? Can they force some turnovers? I think it's going to be key for them. And can offensively, they got it going late. Can they get it going on the start of the game with Mac Jones? Kendrick Bourne looks like a seasoned veteran on that team. Running game looks good, long as Zeke don't fumble. I think that's going to be an intriguing matchup to see. Are the Patriots going to be kind of that outside sleeper that nobody's talking about in the AFC East?
Yeah, I think the division is going to be incredibly interesting all season long. Who's going to win it? I think the Jets were the favorites. Things have certainly changed. Miami looked good. The Patriots look better than last year. Then will Buffalo get it together? So we'll see.
We will find out. And last topic before we conclude the show for today, Novak Djokovic ties major record with the U.S. Open win, won 6-3, 7-6, and 6-3. So, Craig, what's just your reaction to that? Him continuing to have a dominant career and obviously Hall of Fame career?
It's just incredible. I mean, to lose at Wimbledon, I think that was in late July, August, and then it's just right back to it. Another great tournament. He didn't get the rematch with Alcaraz, but just dominated. Um, Tied the all-time record for best of all time, and see where he goes next. But I just think him rebounding from that just shows just how consistent he is, how good he's been, and people need to. I mean, you're allowed to like other players more than him, but at least appreciate how difficult it is just to the stamina to go out there and play in those tournaments just back to back. It's pretty insane.
100%. I
I
agree.
played tennis 2 days ago and I'm still dying. I don't know how he does it.
Yeah, he's just an elite athlete and a great player, Hall of Famer. He's did a good job of making his own story. So shout out to him rebounding after, losing to Wimbledon against Alcaraz, came in, got a big victory. So shout out to him. But we got to address these last couple takes from Jimmy. I think they're interesting. Is Jacksonville winning it all this season, and he has Trevor Lawrence will be the face of football after the season. Those are some bold takes.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Man.
What I will say to that, in part, I do agree with you. I think Trevor is going to be a top quarterback in football. I think he's going to be in the conversation for top 5. I really think so, and I think he's going to surpass and eclipse. You can call me crazy, Josh Allen. He's going to be up there with the Mahomes and the Burrows and the Hurts. He's going to be in that conversation. I 100% agree with you. Winning it all, I'm not going to go that far. I think they got to beat some elite teams first. So, like this game against the Chiefs, regardless of the loss week 1, I think the Chiefs are an elite team. Let's see what he can do against them, right? They got to play the Bengals later this year. Let's see how they do against them. I can't put it there yet. I think they're in the driver's seat to win the AFC South. I will say that. But I'm going to hold out on winning the championship for them. But I think they're going to be a good team this year for sure.
Yeah, and if Jacksonville does win a Super Bowl, you can't talk about just how massive that would be for that franchise, that city, and a fan base that has not thought that'd be in the realm of possibilities many seasons. So yeah, he would certainly become a face right away. But when I think of like the face of the league, I think of like Tom Brady after like the dynasty win. It's like that's when he becomes it.
And then real quick to conclude, who do you think is the face of the NFL right now? Or the faces, if you don't think there's a face, who's the faces of the NFL?
I think it's Mahomes for sure, and then
I think you got to throw Jefferson in there too.
Yeah. He probably just has the most like say talented at his position, one of the greatest ever to do it types. Calvin Johnson level dominance.
Yep.
I say that, yeah, those two guys. There's not really one other that's in their categories.
Chiefs versus Jaguars. He said, "Da." I don't know what that means.
I think he's saying, "Damn." I agree. No, that's a good one. Better than this Thursday. Yeah, Jalen Hurts for sure. Gosh, I can't believe how close that would have been last year.
Yeah, Brady never went 0-2. Face blue wide eyes. These comments are funny. Yeah, I mean, we'll see, man. I think for me, definitely Mahomes. I think you got to throw in Jefferson. I think, too, to a lesser degree, maybe not on that. Well, he's in that conversation. I think you got to throw Burrow. I mean, when he went down with that injury and he was hopping, like the fact that it was probably like 10 outlets that just had tweeted about it. And it just made national news. It was all over ESPN. When he got his contract, same thing. So
yeah, when you're the highest paid ever, I think you can be considered the face as well.
Yeah, I think he's in that combo too. But we appreciate you guys tuning in. We'll be back next Tuesday for another episode. Chiefs going to win that.
I hope so.
We'll see. Hopefully, the rain is over for the Chiefs. No offense, Craig. Obviously, love you, but yeah, y'all have won enough chips. I would like to see somebody else. I'm tired of seeing the Chiefs every year.
They were at the draft this last year. It's like they had a pre-plan. They're like, all right, we got our trophies here. Is this we're going to put the other one? It's like we've gotten extremely cocky.
Yeah, y'all have. And y'all need to be left y'all high horse. So,
like, did you see how we won last year? That wasn't exactly the most confident win.
No.
But not even giving the other team a chance to get the ball at the end. Crazy.
Yeah. But we'll see, man. But we appreciate y'all tuning in. Craig will be back for his show tomorrow.
Yep.
Another great episode. And we'll see you guys next week, 1777 Memorabilia. Make sure you tune in next week, man. We got great content always coming. And appreciate you, Jimmy, as always being a loyal supporter. And we'll see y'all next week, man. We out. Peace.